Hey, VC, Jeff here. Boy, we just got though blown away by a storm. Though I know a lot of people have gotten it a lot worse with lots of snow. We were supposed to be getting snow over the weekend and all this rain and wind, and it blew through last night. But it was just rain, and it ended up getting up into the 40s, pushing towards 50, and so none of it was snow when it came to our area. But I know a lot of people behind us had gotten quite a bit of snow and everything. So hopefully everybody's doing okay out there across the area where the storm hit, and everybody's drying off now. Yeah, it poured for quite a while. We have an issue on one side of our house where it puddles up and comes in into our laundry room, which goes into our little guest room that's in the garage. And so we had water coming in. I had to go out there in the rain, and I'm swishing around and getting leaves out of the way to let it drain. And anyway, got kind of fun, but it's all dried up now. So anyway, over the weekend, got a few things in. Thought I'd go ahead and do a quick video this morning. These have been a long time in the coming, but yet not a long time waiting, in the sense that a lot of the things that come from labels like this and items like this tend to go on pre-order, and then you buy them, and then maybe 3-4 months down the road, especially with the pressing issues these days, then 3 or 4 months down the road, you may, finally get them shipped in. In this case, the label pretty much had everything ready. The records were within a couple weeks of being received, and they went ahead and pre-sold them at that point. So it was kind of like, what? I ordered them, and the next week they were shipped. We're talking Sacred Warrior. Now, there are 2 releases by Sacred Warrior. I'm going to show this one first. Wicked Generation is their 3rd album. Sacred Warrior, if you're not familiar with them, a Chicago, Illinois band. They put out 4 albums back in the day, 88, 89, 90, 91. Now, 3 of those 4 were pressed to vinyl back in the day in some form or another, either in the UK, maybe in the US also. That's in that little transition there where CDs were becoming big, vinyl was starting to go out. I know I didn't buy them on record back then. I had them all on CD because CD was a big thing. So, but these have not been reissued, have not seen the light of day on vinyl anytime since, but they have in recent years been starting to get put out, and so now we're finally completed with that. They did 4 albums. They got together 22 years later in 2013 with the new singer, put out a new album, and that one also came out last year on vinyl. So now, with this that came in this weekend, everything has been reissued on vinyl and CD. Anyway, Sacred Warrior. Now, they are a Christian metal band. They would fall into that category. Now, you got to think back. This is back in the days, Stryper knocked down the doors, 1984, opened the doors for all kinds of metal bands. And so there were a lot of those happening, but there weren't, there weren't a lot of labels that were putting them out, but there were a handful. And Sacred Warrior was one of those bands. This is, like I said, the 3rd album, Wicked Generation, from 1990. This was their 1st album, which also came out now. So, the Rebellion, their 1st album from 1988. Now, when this first came out, so this was a couple years after Stryper. This would have been, one of the first few handfuls of bands in that market of, heavy metal that, had a Christian spiritual worldview. I will say they're not super preachy. So if you're not, if you like Stryper, they're not quite that preachy, I don't think. Maybe at times, but not really. A lot of their music and songs tend to deal with social issues and child abuse and just things of the day, drugs, things like that. So they're nothing drastically preachy, maybe a song here or there. I know they have a praise song here or there that's kind of more lyrically bent like that. But when this came out, this was one of the it was one of the first. We didn't really say power metal back then, but it was US power metal, kind of traditional metal, vocalists, high range vocals. So back in the day, if you're a Christian who's only listening for the most part to Christian music, and yet the secular mainstream counterpart music, and you like bands like Queensryche and stuff with the soaring vocals and stuff, you're looking for something like that. This was one of them. His vocal style came out and was compared kind of to Jeff Tate-ish. And then the music was melodic yet powerful, double bass driven, etc., etc. Just one of the better bands that came out with that vocal style. You know, you had all kinds of other bands. Striper was a higher range vocal. You had Baron Cross, which had that Iron Maiden flavor. That, you know, musically, these guys are little compared to Iron Maiden just because of the traditional metal. But when this album came out, it just was pivotal. It blew us away. It was one, you know, great production, great band, and so yeah, this has always been a favorite. Now this first album, I picked up an OG copy of. I don't know, it was a year and a half or so ago. You can tell the difference here. This is the original release, and you can see, if you can see, you see the band name Sacred Warrior over the picture, and you sort of kind of can make it out that there's something covering up the guys in the band. Well, basically, when they reissued it, Scott Waters went and he traced it with red letters. Now, this was released on CD a couple years ago, I guess, and so they did the same thing, so they brought that over. The original had paper insert for the record that had a couple pictures of the band on one side, a couple pictures on the other, you know, collage stuff on the back. So, great album. This one has an insert that has the lyrics on one side and band picture live on the back there. And then the album itself has a picture of the band. And yeah, so, you know, they upgraded the graphics and made that look nice. Now also, for the first 100 orders of the either Sacred Warrior album, you got this hand-numbered poster. So, as you can see, this one is number 7 of 100. Now, these two albums are just on regular black. So they're just regular black vinyl. Same with this one. Second, this one's got an insert, and then it's got kind of a little collage and information and stuff about the band there. Also on black wax. This one came with the same poster because I bought both albums at the same time. I got 2 posters, and this one's number 6. So I got number 6 and number 7. I placed my order like within moments of the site putting them live. So that's why I guess I got the lower numbers. So those 2 albums came in. Now just real briefly, this is the first one. So this is their second album, Master's Command, and this was reissued on vinyl for the first time in 2017. So this is where they started. They put this out on vinyl in 2017. They remastered it on CD. I believe they came back and put another one out on. So this is blue, and then I believe maybe was this the one a couple years later they put it back out on black? I don't know. So I got one of the original 2017 reissues. Now these are very limited as far as the new ones that just came out. They're like part of the Roxx 100 collector series, so you know they're very limited. Obsession, this would have been part of the limited run vinyl, I believe, back in the day. Yeah. So this was a 2019 vinyl reissue for the limited run. It was on random color, I believe, so it's mine's kind of almost looks pinkish, kind of swirly looking. Again, insert with the lyrics and then some band stuff and context. Anyway, and then yes, in 2013 they got together, put a new album out with a new singer, and then that was reissued last year, 2021, on vinyl for the first time. So now we have the entire five albums by Sacred Warrior, all reissued on vinyl and CD, remastered. Rob Caldwell, all that stuff. Scott Waters did the layouts and stuff for most all of those. Great stuff, and I'm glad to have those. Now, just a couple other items that came in. Fury of Ages, Inner Siege. This is interesting because they had an album out a handful of years ago. Then this came out last year, and I had kind of heard about it, kind of forgot about it, and then I tracked a copy down, found a guy on Discography who was selling a copy for really reasonable, and I bought it. Then later I saw a couple people, but I'm pretty sure Scott Waters mentioned it in one of his countdowns. Like the same week I ordered it and it was in the mail. He mentioned it as being just one of his favorite albums for the year or something. It was in one of the countdowns, what did he do? A top 20 or something? Anyway, I'm like, that's interesting. But then on top of that, I did those videos a while back for the band Spillage, band from Illinois, another Chicago, Illinois band. Seems like all we're going to do is Chicago. This band is from Peoria, Illinois, so another Illinois band. But I did those videos on Spillage, which is another band from Illinois. They're on Qumran Records. Turns out this is on Qumran Records, but I didn't realize that. And somebody commented on my YouTube video about the Spillage and said, yeah, our band has played with their band before. They're a great bunch of guys, great band, really bring it live, yada, yada, yada. So I looked up the name real quick and realized it's the bass player from this band. And I said, that is so funny as far as your timing, because I just ordered a copy of your album just the other day. So it was like that, and Scott Waters mentioned that it's like the band all of a sudden, in the time that I ordered it before it got to me, two different connections there where a member of the band commented on one of my videos about something totally unrelated, sort of, kind of. But anyway, great stuff, power metal, just good, melodic power metal band. Like I said, this is their second album, first one on vinyl, the first album just on CD, and it came out, it seemed like a handful of years ago. Yeah, the first album 2012, and then the new one 2021. So a couple years in between there. Anyway, great stuff. And these last two I picked up online from two different sources. Let me tell you the story about this. This is Rock the Flock by Messiah Prophet, 1984, early Christian hard rock, later kind of more metal. In one of the Facebook groups, one of my friends, one of the guys that that on Facebook all the time and stuff, and he showed some stuff that he got, some Christian metal from his local store, and he said they had some other stuff, and I mentioned what else did they have. I just kind of was curious, and he mentioned some bands, rattled off some stuff, and he said it was all stuff that I already had, and I'm like, and then he mentioned Messiah Prophet, and I said, yeah, I've got all that stuff too, unless it's Messiah Prophet's Rock the Flock, which is what I need, because I have Master of the Metal. He said, yeah, that's what it was. I'm like, please? So he put me in communication with the store owner, who in turn worked it out, and I purchased it, and it turns out it is like, it is almost in like minty fresh condition. Cover has just some minor ring wear on it. I see these all the time for quite a bit more than what he wanted for it, and usually not always in the greatest condition. So I was quickly, worked out getting this, and here it is. And so finally I've got it. There's Messiah Prophet put out two albums, this one and Master of the Metal, and technically a third, but it was a whole different band. It was kind of like whatever. But these first two are the pivotal ones. And so I am finally back in the day when I first started listening to Christian music, when I was trying to kind of straighten up my life with my faith. I got rid of everything except the Christian rock bands that I could find, and at the time in 1985 it was like 5 albums, and this was one of them. Aside from Stryper, you had the first Messiah Prophet, the first Saint, you had bands like Philadelphia and Barnabas, and the first Leviticus album, and these are all little indie labels. And anyway, so this was one that I wore out back in the day because that's all we had. And then this was somebody on Facebook, another Facebook friend, who had this for sale, and I'm like, oh, I'd really love to have that, but I blew too much at Christmas, and I really don't have any money, and tell me if nobody buys it later. And a week or so later, he said, hey, I've still got it if you're interested, and I had sold some CDs to him, actually, and I'm like, well, I still got the money you sent me for those CDs that I just shipped. So he, gave me a deal, and I said, well, here, I'll just send you back your money plus a little extra, because I really want to get this. California Metal Volume 2. I have California Metal Volume 1, one of the first vinyl albums I bought back when I got back into records. When I started buying records again in 2017, I tracked down a copy of that. But getting a copy of Volume 2 was always kind of hard. It's always fairly expensive. I don't know, it just seemed to be harder to find. So here's a copy, and I'm like, yes, I got to get that. Back in the day, California Metal, where it was compilation albums, just like all the other bands. There's K-Rocks, was it K-Rock or K-Nack or whatever? I have a couple of those where, labels would put out unsigned bands. Introduce you to unsigned bands, and that's what these were. California Metal 1 was where we were introduced to such bands as Deliverance and Guardian and Neon Cross and Mastodon, the other Mastodon, and just bands like that. And then on here we had some of these bands went on to do other albums, and some of them you never really heard from, but we had Mastodon again is on here because they were the producers. John and Dino Elefante were the producers, and so they put out a new Mastodon song on here, and then they eventually put out albums. Soldier, which we did recently see reissued on vinyl a couple years ago. Ransom, which CD keeps getting reissued. They had a couple CDs out. Emerald recently got reissued on vinyl from an overseas company. Was it in Italy or something, like 2 years ago or so? They had an album out before this, actually. Vision, I talked about them not too long ago. Actually, Malachi changed their name to Vision when they appeared on here, and I did an interview with the bass player a couple months, a year ago, or whatever. And then bands like Judea, I never really had any other releases from them aside from Demo. And then Recon was, of course, went on to put out a stellar album. But anyway, so this is back in the day. This is where those bands, their custom release cassettes, they'd pull together a song or two from each and put these out and introduce it to people. So there's California Metal 2. I had the California Metal 1. There later was an Underground Metal, which I, after buying this one, went online real quick and found a copy of that for literally under 20 bucks. I could not believe it. Every other copy was $40+. And this guy was selling in near mint condition, so I grabbed it. It's going to go out in the mail tomorrow. There's two of them that are in the Underground Metal series, and I got the first one, but the second one's hard to get. And then there's an East Coast Metal, which had bands like Believer and Apostle and some other bands that were Taker and some other bands that we somewhat heard of. So there was a handful of them in this series that this record label put out, and so I've got two now. Anyway, that's it. I don't want to keep this going too long, but yeah, that's all great stuff. Thrilled to have it. The Sacred Warrior, finally complete this collection of Sacred Warrior. I am so excited to finally have all those. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. I mean, they're just amazing melodic-y metal, Queensryche, but not really, just kind of whatever. Anyway, I'll be back. Thanks a lot for watching. Rock on and rock hard.